Welcome, welcome everyone. I'll let everyone go ahead and log in and get settled. Welcome to another installment of the Bold Moves Experience. We are excited to bring you leveraging workplace relationships, and today's focus is all about networking 101 in the workplace. Let everybody get logged in. All right, so we're excited to have Dr. Monk once again joining the University of Phoenix and gracing us with her presence and expertise. Dr. Monk positively impacts and influences the lives of those she meets. Dr. Monk is passionate about training women and men on how to amplify their influence, communicate confidently, and lead out loud without compromising who they are. She's the founder of Women with Beauty, Brains, and Boundaries, the Workplace Leadership Institute, and the Confidence Suite. Dr. Monk trains women and men, of course, on how to use their core value system so that they are more influential, effective, confident, and productive contributors in the workplace and their communities. Now, by focusing on the core value system and regaining confidence, women are equipped to make the bold moves necessary to improve their career choices, communication style, interpersonal skills, and social skills, all of which result in personal satisfaction. Dr. Christie's mission in life is to teach women and men on how to be the voice and not the echo. Now, without further ado, Dr. Monk, take it away.
Thank you so much, Natasha. And thank you, everyone who has taken out time of their busy schedule to attend with us today. I hope that this session will be very informative for you. Last month, we talked about mentors versus sponsors, but this time we're going to actually dig a little bit deeper and look at how you can leverage other internal relationships to effectively network. So the purpose of today, oh, I'm tongue tied, is to gain insight on how to use collaboration to foster better relationships. Then we're going to gain insight on how to build relationships to grow your career, and then identify some strategies to rock your relationships. So I want to start with a quote. One of the challenges in networking is everybody thinks it's making cold calls to strangers. Actually, it is the people you already have strong trust relationships with, and who know you're dedicated, smart, and a team player, and those are the ones who can help you. And that's by Reid Hoffman. So what we're going to do is talk about networking today. But before we get started, I have a polling question. And so, Natasha, if you can just monitor the chat for me, we'll just about a minute. So how do you rate yourself in leveraging workplace relationships? And this is, think about where you are right now. So using the scale below, a 1, I don't leverage them. 3, I am somewhat in the middle. And 5, I have solid relationships that have worked to my advantage. And the reason why I want to start off with these questions is because we have to take inventory of how we're showing up. And a part of networking is building, well, the part of networking is building relationships. So if you don't know where you may fall, this is going to help you assess the information that you need in order to move forward. So what do we have in the chat, Natasha?
So I'm seeing quite a few threes. I see a couple fives, but mostly three is the popular choice. I see 1 1 so far. Oh, a couple 2 1s, but three is the popular choice.
Okay, so can someone share, that's a 3, why they say that they're somewhere in the middle?
And if you're bold enough, you can unmute yourself and share.
Yeah.
Like,
Hey, Christy. Hey, Dr. Christy and
Hey, Michael.
Natasha. This is Mike from Hawaii. It's great to be on here when I can. I think I use a 3 because I sometimes am a 3 and sometimes a 5. I think I try to keep a steady relationship, but then sometimes other days you just hit it a little bit harder where and you're really getting out there. So that's why I think for me that's why I use a 3.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? That's a three that doesn't mind sharing. Thank you, Michael. No one else? What about a 5? Can I get someone who rated themselves a 5 to share why you've rated yourself as a 5?
Candace, Floor, anyone like to unmute yourself and share?
Hi, this is Jaleesa. I'll share.
Hi.
I rated myself a 5 because I really love people. And it's not always about what I can get from a person, but what I can give. And because I feel like I have a decent connection with folks from all over doing a lot of different things, I always tend to make connections even when folks don't ask, because I think a lost art that we all possess are resources. We all have strengths.
Mhm.
And so in those areas where I might not be great at, I might know someone who can help another person, and they can do, if you will, an exchange of resources.
Oh wow, thank you for that. And I think it's good that you said that you naturally connect with people. It's just innate in you. And what we talked about last time was introverts versus extroverts, where some people may not, be able to make those connections right, readily, but for those who can, it's still good to be able to identify how well you are at leveraging those relationships. And as you just mentioned, it's all about relationships. I mean, that's just what networking is. And when we think about networking for today, we're going to look at internal networking, which can be our team members, our coworkers, managers, or even colleagues. And I kind of lump colleagues into people that you may have met at conferences or things of that nature, because I've seen in my career where meeting someone at a conference actually helped me leverage my mediation, only because they knew me from, who I was and how I showed up during that time. So who knows what soft power is? Who's heard of the term? And you can't sneak and look it up. No one has heard of it? Well,
Cool.
soft power. Anybody heard of it? So I'll tell you what it is. So soft power means being able to influence those that do not directly report to you. And I would also add that it means having the ability to influence those that you do not report directly to. Soft power occurs when you are collaborating with others, making those connections. We all know that working in teams can be a challenge, but collaboration is probably one of the most underutilized ways for building a strong professional network. And this kind of goes back to what you just said, Jalissa. You're able to make those connections, and if there's something you can't do for someone, someone who can. And a lot of that stems from trust and also being willing to co-sign for that person. So that's important to understand. And this is where assertive communication is critical to your influence. And people will definitely remember you by the way you speak and interact with groups. And when you use your soft power, you're actually able to navigate the organization. And this is where you may volunteer for certain special projects that will give you more visibility. But before you can do that, you have to actually build the relationships within the organization. And you should always start with your team members.
Dr. Monk, before you move on, Maria asked, does this include referent power?
As far as?
Or referent power, maybe. Maria, do you want to add to that?
So what do you, can you ask the question? Because I guess I don't understand what she's asking.
Well, it says, does this include referent? Soft power, is there any relation to referent power?
No, well, it can, but from the powers, and I'm going back in my head. Look, she just sent me back to my school books, the 4 powers. So I say yes and no. I say yes in the sense that it could be reverent power, but it's not the thing that's solely underlying as to what's required for collaboration or calibration or working holistically as a team. So she's been in a leadership class. She said reverent power. Thank you.
Keeping you on your toes.
Yeah, ooh, girl, okay. Thank you for the question. And that was actually a good one because I never thought about it like that. That was the first time that someone has actually asked that. So, of course, like I said, networking is the pinnacle to our success, long-term success in organization. And when you're talking about being influential and building key relationships, you need to even have a relationship with the janitor because it's not what you know, it's who you know. And when you think about people doing favors for you or who you could do favors for, you're gonna think about the relationship that you have with that person. So here's a story I want to share with you. So I had a client who had a positive experience in her organization. So her boss left and a new boss came in. And it's going to be two parts of this story. But her boss had recently left the organization. And of course, she had a new boss, and her new boss did not see eye to eye on how things should be done. So the natural response in situations like this is the boss will do what he or she can do at most times to get rid of the employee. Because when we see shifting and leadership and people coming in, they want to bring their own people or they have people that they want to put in position. That's just like the real about how things go sometimes in organizations. So what ended up happening is in her situation, this is what her boss actually tried to do. He tried to get rid of her. He went to HR to see how he could get feedback on her performance from others in the organization who had worked on various projects. So he was trying to dig some things up about who she was and how she actually performed. And to his surprise, everyone was singing her praises. People complimented her on how well she worked with others, how she delivered projects ahead of time, and what a great resource she was for other lines of business. Again, collaboration, that soft power, like she just kind of exerted it softly. So that's how I'm gonna kind of link this. So typically, this is not how the story would end, but her boss had to find ways to work with her. And that was all because she was strategic in building relationships outside of her current work environment. So when we think about networking should be to the benefit of us, not one, just building relationships, but also being able to strategically meet and get to know, like, and trust the people we would be interested in either mentoring us or sponsoring us, but they have to get to know us. And the only way that things like that can happen is that we have to move outside of our comfort zone. So even if you are a manager of people, you have to make sure that you are making the connections. Because one of the biggest mistakes I've seen in leadership is that a new manager comes into a role, new either to the role or to the organization, and they want to dive right in and they want to start telling people what to do. And we know when change happens, what is there? It's resistance. And typically they fail at building the relationship with the team because they came in and just wanted to do their jobs, but they didn't want to cultivate relationships. And relationships are what moves us forward. And when you talk about employees being disengaged, one of the reasons could be is because you don't have a relationship with your manager. So building a relationship is actually twofold. So here's my next question, polling question. How do you build relationships at work? And before you answer this question in the chat, think about what was your natural response when you got your first professional job or whatever job. How did you build relationships, or did you?
One person has said, I seek to understand before I seek to be understood. Finding things in common outside of the work environment over coffee or lunch by asking questions and also comparing values. Very good feedback.
Very good.
Groups, you believe relationships by building, you build relationships by building a level of trust amongst each other, finding common interest, through communicating and speaking with them when they have time and to learn more about them, just sitting back and observing first. That's good.
So, I like all of those answers. I am more of an observer before I just readily jump in. And again, it goes back to understanding your personality style, your makeup of who you are, introvert versus extrovert. And I think one of the things I shared last time as well, if you introverts take a little bit longer to speak up and put themselves out there because we're thinkers, right? So we have to kind of get it here before we move on. So I want to make sure that you're taking the time to understand who you are from a personality perspective so that you can effectively build relationships. And one of the ways, just what was mentioned, for those who may not be as extroverted, coffee or lunch is a good way, and then also finding common interests. So it's important to start thinking about when you start a new job or a new project, think about how you're actually building that relationship. Or are you just showing up saying, I just want to do this and this is it? I don't want to know nobody. I'm not here to make friends. And how many of y'all have said that? I'm not here to make friends. And we're not at work to make friends, but we are there to build relationships. But some of my best friends have come through my working experiences. So your beliefs don't make you a better person, your behavior does. I always say this. I said this last time. And I'm saying this to bring you back to the place of what you need to do in order to effectively rock your internal relationships. The elevator pitch. So, who knows or has an elevator pitch? Does anyone have an elevator pitch that they've used for their career, even if you've used it at a networking event? Does anybody have an elevator pitch that they would like to share? No one? So, and it's okay because I'm just springing it on you. I'm just like, these are some of the things you can do to effectively rock your internal relationships. So the elevator typically is where we have the most awkward interactions with people. Have you ever gotten on an elevator, and your one of the leaders in the organization was on there, and you really wanted to say something to them, but you just didn't know what to say? Or they said something to you and you thought like, I don't even think I responded right to them. Or, so the elevator speech is about letting people know who you are. And so if you don't have one, I would encourage you to start framing one. So when you're actually talking to other people, and you can have more than one, but you have to begin to put yourself out there through communication. And was that Jalissa that said that it's all about communication? So here's what an elevator speech entails. It's who you are. You share your skills, your value proposition. What do you bring to the table? It shouldn't be more than 30 seconds. It should be memorable. And you have to know your audience. And the reason why knowing your audience is important, because certain pitches may not work or resonate with people who may not be able to help influence where it is you're trying to go. And an example, I guess, of an elevator speech one I've used when people ask me, who am I? Well, I'm Dr. Christy Monk. And what I do is I help women. Look, I can't even think of my own. So I help women align their career choices with their core value system so they do the things that they love and that they thrive in life. So something like that. So you have to make sure that it tells who you are, what you do, and it has to be memorable. So consider the elevator pitch as one of your tools for effectively rocking your internal relationships, and you can use the elevator speech outside of your organization. Your personal brand. Your personal brand is important. As we all know, people judge us based on things that they've heard. And when you think of a personal brand, what's one of your, somebody put in the chat, and Natasha, if you can tell me, what is your favorite brand of car? I'm gonna just say car. Who has a favorite car?
BMW.
Okay. And when you think of these,
Nissan.
huh?
Nissan and Jeep.
Okay. So the person who thought of the BMW, when you think of that brand, what comes to mind?
Reliability.
Mm-hmm. What else?
Luxury.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? All right. The Nissan.
Fast.
Okay. Okay.
Expensive.
The Nissan. When you think of Nissan, what do you think of?
Hi, this is Danielle. I have owned nothing but Nissans, and they have lasted me about 10 years apiece. I don't have to do any major maintenance with them. Every time I go to the dealership, they're super friendly. So it's just a reliable car that I know that if I keep buying Nissans, I know that I got 10 years, that I can get out of the car. And I'm actually excited about my current Nissan, which is only about 2 years old, because I'm like, well, it hasn't been anywhere this year, so I can have it maybe 11 years this time instead of just 10. So it's about the reliability of the brand, and they look good too.
All right. So, and taking the two examples, your personal brand stands for this, the body of knowledge. So what do people know about you as a brand? How are you presenting yourself? What are some of the things that you do? What is your value proposition? Then the R is your reputation. We talked last time about managing perception. How are you showing up day to day at work? What are some of your accomplishments? That's the A, accomplishment. What have you done well? And this is one area that most all of us downplay, because we don't want to feel like we're bragging on ourselves. But your accomplishments are a part of your makeup and your career trajectory. So I would encourage everyone, I don't care how small it is, you need to tell people about your accomplishments. The N is your network. Who do you know? And it is true, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And when we're talking about the internal relationships, who do you know internally that you could leverage as an ally or a champion, with mentor, sponsor, who's in your network? And you also have to think about who you're allowing to speak into you or share things about their personal career woes or issues. Because a lot of times, other people's issues within their careers can be deflected onto us, and we're not really understanding, what's going on. But we look at something and be like, oh, wow, yeah, I think they are right. But it goes back to reputation, and it's sad to say is that in organizations, and when you're looking at moving up in your career, it is true that birds of a feather flock together. So if you're thinking about your network, and that consists of a group of employees who are always complaining, you may want to start looking at where you can shift to be around people who can actually help you move forward in your career. And then the D is the definitive skills. These are the skills that you naturally have. These are the things that you're good at. So you have to make sure that when you're thinking about your personal brand, before you go out and start effectively networking, what is it? Who do you stand for, and how do you want people to remember you? Any questions here before I move on?
Nope, no questions.
Okay. And even when like what Daniel said, like the reputation, and even for Nissan and BMW, you know, she's been buying those cars because of the reputation, right? And the accomplishment, and she knows she don't have to do a lot with the car because Nissan has proven over time. Now, if I'm in her network and I was like, oh, you like Nissan? I may even decide to go with Nissan just because of what she knows about the personal brand, and I understand that she knows enough that it may help me in the future. So I think this is our last polling question, but is it office politics or networking effectively? Because, you know, throughout my career, I will say, I'm going to answer for me. I've always viewed office politics as a negative, where, you know, people would be talking to certain people and then they're navigating and going everywhere, but they're always in the know. But when I started seeing those people get promoted, some rightfully and some not so, I began to assess, what is it that they're doing? Is it politicking or is it networking? So knowing what you've seen in your workplace or a previous workplace, would you consider interacting or building the relationships in the office as politics or networking? Is there a difference? Any thoughts?
Hi, Dr. Monk.
Hey,
Dr. Monk.
how you doing?
Hi there.
All the way
Say
from
hello to my
Alaska.
life coach. Yeah, my life coach here. But I would say office politics can be exclusive, while networking is more inclusive and more positive. Um, so I think there could be a difference, but it's definitely going to depend on the environment
Mhm.
and basically how it affects all the team members. Because if you're doing politics and you're excluding people, then you're not taking advantage of those people's resources. So the team is not taking advantage of the diversity, and things are not just going to be as coherent and as strong. Whereas networking, you're bringing like minds together and you're advancing each other, hopefully in a positive way.
All right. And actually, you know, I like that definition of the term, saying that politics is, you know, exclusive and networking is inclusive. I actually like that. I never tied it to diversity and inclusion, but I like it.
A couple comments in the chat as well. I think we may have working issues. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple more in the chat. It says, yes, office politics is you only talk to the people who have the power to promote you.
Mm-hmm.
The office networking is when you're getting to know everyone, no matter if they can promote you or not. And then another comment is, it depends on who you're looking at and what lens you're looking through. I don't trust everyone's word. I believe, you know, there's a difference. Office politics aren't always factual, and it can easily be a negative personal bias. Networking is reliable, effective, and positive.
All right. I mean, I like every last one of those because actually what it is, everything is a matter of perspective. And it doesn't make it right, wrong, or indifferent. But when you start thinking about how things can be labeled, you have to really look at how you're showing up and what that means to you as it relates to your personal career. Because I do like that it's not always about who you're networking, not about who you were doing it for the wrong reasons. Whereas when we're networking, we're doing it to build everybody up. It's just not about me, it's about us, it's about a team. And we work in teams even if we work independently. So thank you all for sharing those definitions. I loved every last one of them. So anybody else before I move on? No? Okay.
Good.
All right. And here we go again. Just another gentle reminder. Life is what happens to me or what I make happen. So of course, it's always going to be what we make happen, because I asked when we first kicked this off, who's responsible ultimately for your career? And it's you. We're all individually responsible, but of course we all need help. Success occurs when opportunity meets preparation, Zig Ziglar. So we have to be prepared when the opportunities come. So here's the internal networking blueprint. It's easy to follow. First, you want to build mutually beneficial relationships. And this can be with coworkers, managers, people in other departments, anyone with the janitor, anybody within the organization. You should want to have a relationship. And let me give you an example. Have any of you ever heard this or experienced it? So maybe you've asked for something from a tech guy, like you need a laptop. And typically laptops are on back order for 5 months. But because you built a relationship with the tech person, you get your laptop way before anyone else. And they was like, well, we thought they were on back order. Well, that was because I had a relationship with that person. And typically they will say, because it's you. Because it's you. And then you have a coworker talk about, well, how do you get that? Because you built the relationship. So relationships shouldn't be just about title. We can build and should build relationships horizontally and vertically and diagonally, however you can build them. It should be a whole circle, which means it should be continuous, because that's how we grow and learn. Because somebody mentioned earlier something about strengths and understanding. You play to your strengths, but then you may have a person that's a team member or coworker, and you can learn something from them that you may not be as strong at doing, but because you had a relationship, you don't feel intimidated by asking for their help. So there are a lot of benefits to networking internally. And then you have to understand your value proposition. And this is the value that you bring. And one of the things, and Dr. Jujelda, she actually worked through the value proposition exercise. Typically on our resumes, they read like the job description. But to understand and to be able to communicate your value proposition, you actually have to be able to communicate or list out your accomplishments, or at least know what they are. Maybe you help shave off 2 minutes from a processing time. Maybe you help improve customer satisfaction by 25% because you help create a survey. Those are things that add value. So when you think about your value proposition, go back and look at all of your accomplishments, even if they were volunteer, wherever they are. Understand your value proposition, because there's definitely something that you can leverage when you consider your career trajectory. Develop your personal brand. I've shared with you what a personal brand should look like, and this is where your elevator speech becomes important. You have to know your career goals. When you think about networking internally, what department do you may need to try to get a special assignment in? What projects should you volunteer that may take you outside of your comfort zone? But before you even think about volunteering and building those relationships, you have to know what your career goals are, because you have to be strategic. If you know you want to be a teacher and you're working, I don't know, I was at a manufacturing plant. How can you leverage working relationships within the manufacturing plant to get you to your ultimate goal of wanting to teach? Maybe that would be then volunteering to do some training classes, or sitting in shadowing a trainer or a facilitator. So it's not always that you have to leave where you are, but you have to understand what your career goals are and leverage the relationships that you have where you currently are to build you up to that end goal, so that you can rock your relationships. Any questions here? So what are the benefits of a quality working relationships? Influence personal and performance outcomes. Everyone understands their role. And what I mean by that is if I know Natasha is senior career strategist and I'm a senior, I don't know, something, but I understand who she is and what she does, and I understand who I am and what I do, and that takes us to getting to know people. And when you know that, I'll use this for an example. I know what her role is, and there are times when people feel intimidated because they think you may want their job or you try to get ahead of them. This goes back to effective communication. I probably should have switched those, but the communication becomes understanding first who you are, what you need, and who you need it from. And then that's establishing the mutually beneficial relationships. And then it increases our knowledge sharing. Because I think that's another reason why we don't effectively leverage relationships within our organizations, is because we don't want to be vulnerable, or we don't want to share the information for fear that somebody may get ahead of us. And that's why my foundation is core values. That's why I teach people to align their career choices with their core values, because if you know what yours are, you're going to be able to have effective working relationships because you know who you are. And I shared that one story with me about how my higher ups mistreated me. And I know part of that was their own issues internally, but then it was also they felt intimidated because they felt like I wanted their positions, and I don't. I didn't want it. So just understand and have those conversations. And especially if you are a leader, understand what your staff's career goals are and help them facilitate that. But then on the flip side, as an employee, you have to know what they are in order to effectively communicate to your leader or the influential others who could help move you forward. So that's what I have for that. And then my question to each of you who rated a 3 or below, what's holding you back from networking internally and building those bridges? Because I do know the last time, I don't know how many of you were on our webinar last month, where there were some takeaways of how to begin to build relationships within the organization as it relates to mentors and sponsors. So what's holding you back?
Someone says trust.
And that's a huge issue, trust.
Or lack of, and then someone else says lack of trust.
And I'm going to ask this because I do think that a lack of trust is one of them, and it is probably major. Why don't you trust? And that's rhetorical in a sense, because what we typically do, we'll leave one organization and go to another one thinking that things will change, and you have unresolved issues at the previous employer, and it's just like being in a relationship. You move on, and then something happens, and then you're reminded of why you didn't trust that person, or they're just like somebody else. I can't trust them. I can't trust nobody. So, but how do you get to a place to where you are trusting? Is what I would say. How do you? And a lot of times trust also links back to core values, because we settle for things that don't align with who we are. And it's hard to trust because we have this expectation and it's not being delivered upon. And it makes us say, you know what, I can't, and I'm done. So any other thoughts on what's holding you back?
Someone says insecurities regarding perception. As you have said, some people may see you as a threat when you are too confident and eager. How do you tone this down? Should you tone it down?
So typically when people label you, I always still say it's an issue that they have within themselves. But depending on what's being shared and what's being said, if you get the same feedback like over and over, it may be something worth exploring. Not to say that it's all wrong, but I don't think you should ever, and I use the word tone down. I think you should be who you are, but that's why it's important that when you first go into, let's just say, an organization, a new team, or anything that's new, you should always bring your authentic self. And I think we end up having to tone things down because we went in not being who we were. So when you get to that place, I know it's kind of deep, when you get to that place of really owning who you are and realizing where you've compromised, and it is hard to build these relationships because I don't trust anybody, you have to begin to assess whether or not you brought your full self to and I hate to say the work, that's not the work, but brought your whole self into your workplace. And yes, you should leave certain issues at the door, but I don't think you should compromise or tone down, as you said, who you are. I think you should be who you are. And now is a better time than any with the state of affairs, and you know how things have just morphed in the world, you know, with the pandemic and things. I think we cannot afford to not be who we are. But do you may need some training on how to be a better
Dr. Monk,
presenter.
you went out for a bit. If you could kind of say it again, your signal went out and we kind of missed just that little piece.
Which piece?
Just repeat what you just said.
I don't know, because I was flowing in my head.
You just froze.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know. It was back to, so basically, I think you should bring your authentic self
Yes.
to work. So I'm gonna say that. And then I said, I don't think you need to downplay who you are, but I guess to sum it all up, you have to make sure, one, that you're communicating assertively and you're presenting. And I said, and that could be where you just may need to do some professional or personal development in order to, I don't know if the word is frame or shape up, but you know, just like when anybody, let's just say when the president, the president comes in to the office, he's never been president, all of a sudden now he has a team of people who are helping him be polished and, you know, helping him speak, you know, different. So it may just be more or less getting the additional professional training or development that you can get in order to bring your best self to work. So I don't like the word tone down, but I think if you go in being your authentic self in the beginning, you wouldn't have to change who you are later. It's when you're being asked to change, is when you have the feelings of frustration because you were never your authentic self in the first place.
So there are a couple more comments in the chat, but Leslie Porter, I believe, just raised her hand. So Leslie, if you want to go ahead and unmute.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Hi,
Yes.
Leslie. Yes, I can.
Hi, how are you? I'm sorry, I was having computer issues earlier. But one thing that you were saying, and I have found myself in this situation as well, when they're like, you have to tone this down, you seem mean. Okay, well, for the lack of a better word, I say, well, go ahead and consider me mean, but I'm going to speak my mind regardless.
Right.
I try to do it professionally, but there's always that one person that wants to poke the bear and they want to see how far they can push you. Mm-hmm. And again, I've stopped playing into a lot of that, and I look at it as the situation is. The thing is you touched on something, and it's like, I know what I'm capable of. I know my job, and I know how to do my job. And I have to walk in that every day, and I have to constantly remind myself of that every day, because it can take just one thing. And if I shut down, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to get too much out of me after that,
Mhm.
because you don't value what I have to say. So I'm not going to say very much to you. Now, for my bosses, my supervisors, I tend to be a lot more honest and open with them, because generally they're the ones who I have to ultimately answer to. So I come at them a little more honest and say, okay, if you have a problem with me, I would like us to discuss this. I should not be hearing about this anywhere. And believe it or not, in the workplace where I am, and I work as a federal employee,
Mhm.
that kind of issue is very disconcerting, because it happens more often than not. By the time you find out somebody has a problem, it's done got around. And I think that is so unprofessional.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, so you want me, you're expecting something of me, and I'm expecting that and then some from you. So I tend to walk in that, because I have a line that I'm not going to allow anybody to cross, regardless of who you are.
Mhm.
So you set boundaries, and you have to live in those boundaries. And I set my boundaries, and generally I don't let people cross them, because once they do it, they're going to continue to do it.
Yeah, and I think, and even with you speaking about boundaries, Leslie, that's why it's important to set those boundaries initially. You know, so people know where they stand with you, especially in the workplace. Because yes, and I know through government, yeah, they people want to email your boss, and then you blindsided by what you're hearing, because that person never did, you know, come to you or what have you. But and I do know that a lot of that is still on that other person. So I would say continue to keep being you in the workplace. But I will ask you, why do you feel that it's easier for you to be honest with your bosses versus your peers?
Because a lot of my peers, honestly, are younger than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I tend to do what I can't remember if it was you or someone else, but when I go to a new job, or if I go to some place different, I tend to observe first.
Mm-hmm.
And I find some of the people I work with have some really thin skin,
Mm-hmm.
you know, with any situation, whether it's the atmosphere, whether it's, you know, working with other people. Um, Again, I consider myself kind of an introvert when it comes to certain things. I don't like to mingle too much, because that can send the wrong message as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I just, I don't, everybody has a different personality, I guess, but I find it a little bit too cliquish.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I didn't do the cliques in high school and middle school. So being, you know, half day older than dirt, going into the workplace, I'm not doing it there either. I can't. That cliquish crap it irritates me, because then when it comes down to doing work and talking, okay, let's not cross that line, because you have a problem with me at work. Are you going to also have the same problem with me in a social setting?
Right.
So I'm, like I said, I guess I'm just apprehensive.
Okay. And that's okay. I mean, but you know where you are when it comes to that. And that's why I say, like, what's holding you back? But then also think about even building the relationships horizontally with your coworkers. That can still, depending on if you still aspire to move forward in your career, it still will have some bearing or some weight, because what if you become the supervisor over those people? And I'm just using your example. You still want to be able to build the relationship in order to have one that, you know, you could effectively, one, work together to meet goals, and even just to get along just in the day-to-day workspace.
Right. And don't get me wrong, I do establish relationships,
Mhm.
but I also equate it to what I do in my personal life.
Okay.
You will never have another chance to betray my trust. working or not, because I'm one of those people. Once my trust is betrayed, once I see you constantly question my integrity and my character, yeah, I'm done. Because you don't respect me, and I will keep it professional. Because again, the job that I have, I touch everybody in my organization in one way or another. I'm in information security. I touch everybody. Everybody has to come to me for something.
Okay.
So I'm always keeping it professional.
Well, I appreciate you sharing. I mean, because I think what you shared, I think many of us have experienced at one time or another. And then, but just understanding what's holding you back, and then establishing the necessary boundaries. But I do think it's also important, because you kind of touched on it, you know, conflict resolution, understanding what your conflict resolution style is, so that you can effectively work with anybody and everybody, just for the sake at least of meeting company goals. So thank you for sharing that. So now it's your turn. This will be your takeaway. So when you think about your internal working relationships, what you would like to do, I want you to think about the projects or task force that you can ask to be a part of that will expose you to other areas of the organization. Then pick one area in your organization that you believe will complement your career goals. So again, you have to know what they are. And then list 2 action steps you will take to get exposure to those areas, and include whose help you need. So that goes back to the relationships. And even though it may be peer to peer, let's just say I'm interested in working in a department, and Natasha, who's just my friend, she's just a peer, she can speak for me. You know, she can tell her boss, or tell me, Christy, we getting ready to have a position to come available. I think you know, so that's how you can leverage the relationships horizontally and vertically, and diagonal and circle, all that. So as we get ready to close, so I did speak on my last month, the Elevate Her mentoring program is coming in January. And for those who are part of the Bold Moves experience, I'm offering $500 off, and the link there with the information and what it's going to cover is included there. Payment options are available, and Dr. Judetta, she just completed the program. So, Dr. Judetta, you want to tell them what your experience was working with Dr. Christie?
I'd be glad to. It was a very awesome experience. It gave me a lot of internal tools to use. It also helped me to just prepare, because I'm in the process of transitioning from my current position to I'm moving home. So it helped me get my mindset right. Just a personal one-on-one, I guess, assistance that I got that you really couldn't get anywhere else. I just felt like it was probably one of the best investments I made, investing in myself. And Dr. Christie, she was available. She was very flexible. A lot of times my schedule kind of fluctuated back and forth, because for some reason, Alaska, we have these weird time things. Like now, we're on total darkness. And she was just able to connect me to a lot of things within myself that I didn't see. And you know, it's almost like it's hard to diagnose yourself, but she gave me a lot of good prescriptions that help open me up and prepare me to enter back into a new position and be ready to go. So I feel confident, and I really enjoyed it. So I highly recommend her without hesitation. I'll probably just go into this one again, because I feel like iron sharpens iron, and you can never be too sharp. So it was an awesome experience, and I appreciate everything that you've done and imparted in my life. And I just know it's well worth the time.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And if anybody's interested, Elevate Her is bit.ly.elevate and capital HER. So any questions before we move on? Because it's about time for us to end our time together. And I just enjoy these sessions, but they go so fast. Any other questions or comments before we get ready to wrap up?
Well, there are quite a few in here, so I'm not sure if we could get to all of them, but there is one. It says, when you were asking the question about what's holding you back, and a comment was being let down when you've tried to progress and you're not given the opportunity.
Mhm.
And then as we speak about core values, I now realize that my core values are not in alignment with the culture of my work environment. So my question is, how do I get out of that environment when it is so toxic and mistrusting?
So is it the entire, so is it the environment, like the company culture, or is it just the department? I'm gonna ask that, whoever asked that question. So if it's everything, you have to have an exit strategy. So what I would first recommend for whoever asked that to do is, if they've never done
Just the department.
just a department, I would look to see where else in the organization you can go first, only because you already have knowledge within the organization. A lot of times we're just in the wrong position, but we could actually still thrive at that organization. And if you haven't, I would, do one of the personality assessments that to find out who you are and what it is that you want to do and the types of environments that you thrive in. And then I actually do that through the Keirsey Temperament, which is one of the assessments that I do. And you would have a holistic understanding of what your temperament is in the workplace. What are the behaviors that drive you? What are the behaviors what you will probably have exude more conflict? What's your communication style and how you interact with team members and managers? Because I think a lot of it is we don't know where we fit and what our own personal temperaments are within the workplace. And then if not, start looking externally if that's what you want to do, but leverage your network. Let people know what it is you're trying to do. But you just can't leave. But maybe you can, but you shouldn't. I would seek, a career path internally if you can, but if not, definitely start looking. But align your career choices with your core values. So know what your core values are before you even start looking. You have to know what they are. I hope that helps. Anything else, Natasha?
I don't think we have much time.
Okay. All right. So what's next? But thanks for all the questions, and we'll read them. And if we need to respond back or send something out holistically, we definitely can do that. So navigating forward through sales. This is the 6-part entrepreneur series for business owners. If you know any business owners, feel free to pass this information on. This is going to be building blocks for small business leader, and it's December the 17th, which is 2 days from now at 2 p.m. And if you're interested, there's the scan code. Then in January, we're going to do the cost of conflict for leveraging your career. That's going to be January the 19th. And, I've kind of talked about conflict resolution styles and all that, but we're going to really do an overview of the cost of conflict. What is it costing the organization and the individuals involved in the conflict? So that's January 19th. And then if you want to learn more about the programs at University of Phoenix, you can contact Natasha. And here's the scan code here as well. And then, of course, we always want your feedback. Please, I think we missed it the last time, but we would love to get your feedback. So if you could scan the QR code and give us your feedback. And if there are any additional classes you would like to see, I know we have things planned out through April, but if there's anything that you would like to see, a class on writing an elevator speech or whatever, let us know. So without further ado, we want to thank you for your time today. I hope you learned something that you could walk away with and implement. And of course, if you have questions, feel free to email me, cmonk@christymonk.com, CHRISTIMONK.com. And of course, follow me on social media at Dr. Christy Monk. Thank you. We're done. Talk to y'all in a month.